Okay, good day everybody. This is going to be a quick lecture on the greenhouse effect and global warming. Target 14 is what we're going to be covering, and it actually has many parts to it. It's a pretty big target. So here it is. You're going to need to know how to define the greenhouse effect. You need to know how to describe the positive and negative effects of the greenhouse effect to Earth's climate. List ways humans can change climate, and describe how the composition or makeup of Earth's atmosphere affects energy absorption, climate, and the distribution of particulates and gases. Really, that last one is just the first four all put together. So here we go. So in your science notebook, I would jot down these 8 statements and realize that some are true and some are false. So copy down the following statements and leave a space between each sentence. You're going to want to be able to mark each as true or false. And if you believe the answer is false, we're going to ask you to explain why. These 8 statements are going to show up at the end of the video as well. And hopefully you'll have these and your ideas recorded in your notebook for class. And we can see what it is that you think is right or incorrect. Here we go, greenhouse effect. Page 191 in your text if you wanted to have that out as well. So here on the left we have the actual natural greenhouse effect. And as you can see, we have solar radiation from the sun that penetrates through our atmosphere, as we've studied in depth. And because of our atmosphere having the gases of CO2, H2O, methane, and a number of others, those gases actually work as like a greenhouse. Okay, so light comes in through the glass of a greenhouse. The actual radiant heat is re-emitted, but the glass actually keeps that doesn't make its way back out through the glass. So that's why they call it the greenhouse effect. And even in the winter, greenhouses will feel warmer than as if you were standing outside on the other side of the glass. So heat does escape into space. However, because of those gases, as you can see, less re-emitted heat. All right, so it kind of works like a blanket in a way. It's an actual good thing, and we're not the only planet that has the greenhouse effect. However, there's what we call the human enhanced greenhouse effect, or if for any reason there was gases being put into the atmosphere in addition to those that are naturally occurring, you actually get more re-emitted heat. Okay, so less heat is escaping into space because you can think of it as being a thicker blanket. You have more CO2 or more methane or even more water vapor could also cause an increase in the greenhouse effect, therefore causing global warming. So more greenhouse gases means that you're going to have a more enhanced greenhouse effect and therefore higher temperatures. So here we have greenhouse gases in our atmosphere, and they are, as you can see, this list here, the 3 main ones would be water vapor, CO2, carbon dioxide, and methane. Okay, there's a number of other ones, but they show up in such small amounts that we don't really need to be too concerned about them in our studies this year. So as you can see, water vapor makes up the significant majority, and then CO2, and then methane, and a whole bunch of others. So most people don't think of water vapor as being a greenhouse gas, but it is. CO2 would be, however, the largest contributor that's being added into the atmosphere that is causing an enhanced greenhouse effect. So here we have some data, and this can be found in a number of places online. This is actually provided by a reputable source from the Department of Energy and NOAA as well. So you always want to make sure where you get your data from, but this stuff is actually, it's good. So here we have, it's really 3 things we're looking at in one graph. We have along the x-axis, we have our years from 1880 to roughly today, so past 2000. And we're looking at over here on the right where it says parts per million. On a lot of graphs, you'll see ppm. So, so CO2, as you can see, is increased dramatically. That's going to be our red line. The blue up and down line is the global temperature. And here we have temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit. So that doesn't mean only 1 degree. That means the uh, average global temperature increase due to global warming. So 1 degree globally is a big deal. 2 degrees is a very big deal. If you're getting an average of the entire planet and you've gone up 2 degrees, that would cause significant melting of the ice caps, probably even more than what is happening today. All right, so as you can see, with an increase in CO2, there's also an increase with global temperature, okay, of carbon dioxide. But there is a clear relationship here, and that's one that we can't really argue. More CO2 means more warming of Earth's atmosphere, and then that can cascade and cause a number of other effects. So here's another graph which actually goes further back in time, and this shows that there's atmospheric carbon dioxide and the concentration in mean global temperature or average global temperature over the past 1,000 years. So our last graph was really from about here and then over to our right, whereas this goes back even further. So here's our parts per million. At one point in time, we were well below 290 parts per million. Okay, you can see that that's kind of like a happy average for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And you can see how, along with that, the global temperature was quite constant until really about late 1800s, early 1900s. So it might be good to think about, well, what was going on in Earth's history around that time? And the answer is the Industrial Revolution. And since then, we've added tremendous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So this is something that's still being studied in great depth, but it's clear that there is a relationship here, and the greenhouse effect is a direct contributor to the idea of global warming. Okay, so let's talk about the positives and the negatives of the greenhouse effect. Probably the easiest way to look at this would be a simple T-chart. So the greenhouse effect is, it's a good thing. It insulates us from the cold of space, making the planet hospitable or able to be supporting significant diversity of life. Only a small amount of greenhouse gases are needed for this effect to work. So that's why a lot of times when the greenhouse effect is talked about now, it seems like a bad thing, but that's because there's more gases being put into the atmosphere that wouldn't be there naturally at those levels. The negatives, well, a small increase in the greenhouse gases or the greenhouse effect gases causes global warming. So many human activities are increasing the level of greenhouse effect, those gases, and there's been climate changes recorded already. Melting of glaciers, rising of sea levels, significant droughts, desertification, changes in biosphere, so the living, changes in populations of plants and animals, and then regional temperature change. Limiting global warming. Solutions for limiting global warming and climate change include finding clean, renewable energy sources. Clean meaning they're not putting carbon or carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, and renewable meaning that it's something that once we take it, we still have more of it. So things like wind and solar, things like that that renew themselves, those would be a better way to use energy and it be clean. Be more efficient in using your energy. So making sure you think about, do you need it? How much are you using it? Are you actually using what you're using? And then removing carbon from fossil fuel emissions. And then have an open mind and understanding that a small change can have a huge effect. Greenhouse effect is a good thing, but too much of a good thing can oftentimes be bad. So let's recap. The greenhouse effect and global warming, these are the targets that you should have been able to answer and should be able to answer by the end of the unit. So take another look at those and see if you can answer those. And then here are those 8 statements at the end that we are hoping you will be able to discuss in class. All right, so hopefully this helped you out, and feel free to go and take the quiz and see what it is that you've learned. Have a good one.